Good afternoon. Oh, so can we start? Yes. All right. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Commission for Historical and Architectural Preservation. I call this meeting to order on August 13th, 2024 at 1:08 p.m. It looks like we have just a few absences, but I think we do in fact have a quorum. If we can now do our roll call, starting with my left. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Eric Holcomb, Executive Director.
Good afternoon, John Bullock, City Council Representative to the Commission.
Ann Powell, representing Greater Baltimore Committee.
Peter Morrill, Commissioner.
Catherine Good, Commissioner.
Jill Dennis, Commissioner.
Myra Mendeleev, Commissioner.
Gary Rodwell, representing the Coppin Heights Community Development Corporation and Baltimore Heritage.
Kapal Land, Commissioner.
Tamara Woods, representing the HCD. And my name's Nicole Battle, representing Nonprofit Development and also acting chairman today. All right, and welcome to all who are in attendance today. The mission of CHAP is to enhance and promote the cultural and economy of Baltimore through the preservation of buildings, structures, sites, and neighborhoods that have aesthetic, historic, and architectural value. The goals of CHAP include preserving historic architecture and monuments, reclaiming broken neighborhoods, preventing demolition by neglect, and integrating our city's past into its future. We have a few housekeeping items. If you have phones, if you can please mute them or turn them off. We are taping today, so anything that goes on over there will be on our tapes. And if you're having conversations, we ask that you have those conversations outside of this room, unless you want that also taped. We have a copy of our agenda outside, so if you are planning to testify, please put your name on the agenda so that we know that you are here to testify and we can call you accordingly when we come to your agenda item. If you would like to speak, and if you have not signed in, please feel free to sign the form. Depending on the number of individuals who would like to speak, we usually give 2 to 4 minutes for comment. I will give you a 30-second signal, which includes this, when your time is almost up. We ask that you adhere to that. I know there's a lot that you may want to say, but in order to make sure that we make sure that we're following our schedule, we ask that you honor the 2 to 4 minutes and don't make that 8 to 12 minutes. When you are called to speak, we ask that you please provide your name first and last so that it may be entered into the record. All right. Any questions? Hearing none, I would like to make a motion to waive the reading of the minutes. Are there corrections or additions? No. All right. I would like to make a motion to adopt the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Did I not do something? I'm sorry. What?
I didn't know that you could make the motion.
Yeah?
Yeah, that's what I was curious.
We made it for it.
Yeah, so
Okay.
I moved it.
Oh, okay. Thank you. All right. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm acting today, so please, grace.
We got you.
I appreciate it. All right. Due process and review procedures. CHAP reviews applications in conjunction with the building permit process of the permit section of the HCD. If a building permit application is filed prior to historic design review, the application is placed on hold pending completion of the CHAP review process. The review process is completed by issuing an authorization to proceed. The historic design review process is in addition to other applicable laws and regulations and does not diminish the force of urban renewal plans, building codes, zoning codes, etc. It is the applicant's responsibility to comply with all applicable laws, regulations, and codes. Proposed projects are reviewed prior to issuing a building permit. Applicants must comply with the Baltimore City Historic Preservation Design Guidelines in planning and executing their projects. Design review considers the proposed work, taking into consideration the historical and architectural character of the structure and the immediate area. Applicants will need to clearly explain how their project complies with the design guidelines. Minor projects. In order to expedite the application process, the Commission has delegated review authority to the Executive Director for cases involving minor work. Minor projects must not significantly change the overall appearance or remove the significant undamaged historic fabric. All minor work must clearly meet the design guidelines. Major projects. Major projects may change the overall character, appearance, and integrity of the structure. Substantial building alterations, demolitions, additions, and the new construction are considered major projects and are reviewed at a public hearing such as this. Interested parties should request a pre-development meeting in the planning department to begin the review process. An electronic version of all materials must be submitted to the CHAP staff at least 25 calendar days prior to the public hearing date. If the application is complete, that's when the project is scheduled for a public hearing. CHAP hearings. What you will see today is, at this hearing, CHAP staff presents recommendations to the Commission regarding the project. Following the staff presentation, the applicant may make a presentation to the Commission. Usually, we limit that presentation to no more than 10 minutes. Interested parties, including neighborhood associations, have the opportunity to provide public testimony. So hopefully all those who are planning to testify today have had an opportunity to write their name or sign their name so that they are entered into record and we can call you. Following testimony, the Commission renders a decision on the application at this public hearing. Persons aggrieved by the decision of the Commission may seek judicial and appellate review in accordance with the Baltimore City Code. After an authorization to proceed is issued, the applicant may obtain a building permit. The Commission's process is impartial, and staff comments are evidence that assist the Commission in rendering decisions. All right. I would like to ask for a motion to approve the final agenda.
So moved.
All right. Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Hearing none, let us begin. Move to the agenda. Ms. Rachel Donaldson? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. So the first item is, oh, wait, did I go backwards? Nope, I am, sorry. Okay. Thank you. This is my first time with this clicker, so I appreciate it. The first item is discussion of the CLG, Certified Local Government Review of a request by the property owners of 500 North Caroline Street, who are seeking to have the properties of the Paul Lawrence Dunbar School Complex listed on the National Register of Historic Places. And this is part of their plans to redevelop the PS 101 addition building located at 500 North Caroline Street. And just to show you the two properties to be listed, marked in a circle is the old Dunbar High School. This was listed as part of PS 133. This was designated a Baltimore City landmark in 2012. And then you have the addition to PS 101 marked with a star. PS 101 was torn down, and it's a little confusing, but the property itself in question, the addition was built for PS 101. In the 1950s, it became an annex to PS 133 when that school became a junior high and elementary school. So getting to the background. Again, these property owners are seeking historic designation as listing on the National Register of Historic Places will make these properties eligible for historic tax credits for rehabilitation. And we're particularly looking at the addition located on the right. The commission is reviewing the nomination in an advisory capacity because the commission is a certified local government. The nomination was already passed by the State Review Board, and the nomination, though, cannot move forward until the Maryland Historical Trust receives a recommendation from CHAP. The two buildings of this complex are historically significant for their association with Black public education, particularly the struggle for equal education. They are also being nominated under Criterion C local for their association with prominent Baltimore architects and as exemplars of Art Deco and New Deal modernism in civic buildings, in this case, schools. For Criterion A, Ethnic Heritage, Black History Local, the school buildings, which were constructed in the 1930s, were the product of Black residents' long struggle for equal educational facilities prior to the Brown decision of 1954. Both buildings were built to address problems of overcrowding in Black public schools, and Public School 133 was the first junior high school in Baltimore constructed expressly for that purpose. The two former buildings, two school buildings, also illustrate inequality in education after the end of de jure segregation. During the mid-1960s, they were the site of the Baltimore CORE, which stands for the Congress of Racial Equality, chapter's educational campaign protesting inequality in both school facilities and in educational instruction occurring in majority Black schools. And just to put this in a bit of a context, this campaign happened in 1965, and this was a year after SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, began the Mississippi Freedom Schools. And part of the Mississippi Freedom Schools was calling for relevant education, and part of that was instruction in African American history. And in CORE's demonstrations a year later, they too were calling for relevant education, particularly in African American history. As such, according to the nomination, these properties meet the registration requirements as a conflict and demonstration center property type, which was identified in the Civil Rights in Baltimore, Maryland, 1831 to 1976, multiple property listing, 1930 to 1965, the Great Depression and World War II, and 1966 to 1976, after the unrest context. CHAP staff has informed numerous stakeholders about this proposal, including RJY Chick Webb Council, Change for Real, Historic East Baltimore Community Action Coalition, tenant councils for Perkins Homes, Somerset Homes Extension, Monuments East, Douglas Homes, Pleasant View Gardens, Walters Towers Senior Apartments, Lester Morton Courts, Ashland Park Mews, Sterling Street Neighbors, Old Town Mall Merchants, nearby churches, Baltimore City Public Schools, National Academy Foundation, Housing Authority of Baltimore City, and the Baltimore City Department of Housing and Community Development. We received one letter of endorsement from Ronald Miles, an alum of the Paul Lawrence Dunbar School and CEO of RJY Chick Webb Incorporated. Staff finds that the nomination does meet the National Register Criterion A, Ethnic Heritage and Black History Local, and also Criterion C, Architecture. But we particularly want to note its association with the trajectory of the modern civil rights movement in Baltimore. Again, connecting back to Criterion A. And staff recommends approval because it meets the merits of this criteria. And the only thing the staff does recommend is some minor copy editing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Are there any questions?
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Ron Miles is up there. I'm sure he wants to speak.
Okay. I'm sorry, Mr. Miles, I don't have a sheet that says who wants to testify, but it's my understanding that you do?
Yes.
All right.
Yes, you have my name. I'm Ronald Miles, President and CEO of the RJY Chick Webb Council, where we did forward a letter in support of the project. In that letter, you will see that my entire family came through Dunbar High School. But I'm here today that we do not want to miss an opportunity. But even with the names of the organizations that were submitted here, and just to see that we're the only ones that responded to this significant piece for the Baltimore City, I'm just baffled by it, I just have to say. But at the same time, we know that the school is located within the PSO Project Transformation area. And it's very hurtful that even prior to the application, that we never were informed to this particular project. And the way I got the message was through the planning department's outreach, through their email or whatever like that. But even preliminarily, as we are working diligently, supposedly every day, with this team for the PSO area where this is situated, this should have been presented much sooner so that the developers themselves could have at least talked with the community as to what their intent is. Now, and within the education system, when you see in my letter, all the different people that came through that particular school, as far as the historic significance where we built it from, and the developers are getting the leverage from our hard work, getting the leverage. And my question is, what does the community get? Why haven't we created a community agreement that once these developments are taking place, what comes back to the community? Why must we continue to be consumers as they then get the tax credits, as they can get the tax money and the grants and whatever else? I would like to say just to the developers themselves, provide something for the community. Why not create some kind of a fund that would at least give scholarships to Dunbar High School? Or give something else back to where I've rest with this is off a little bit, because that is such a gem area, because just down the street there, you have the Chick Webb Memorial Recreation Center that is currently locally, and I've been talking to the Department of Rec to make it national, because it is the only recreation center in America built from the ground up by nationally known black folk. So that is a very rich area that has been built on the backs and the sweat of the black community. But we're not receiving anything. I don't need a beautiful building just by itself, and we get satisfied with that. Give us something back. And it's not begging. It could be a form of reparation. So I'm just saying to you today that we want this particular building and want to support it to be. But on the back end, we see development, we see the building under construction, but there was no discussion prior to the privately owned building when they bought the building from the city. And then in my letter, I indicate that early on, 6-7 years ago, when we first started talking about the Chick Webb Center, the old Dunbar building was talked about it becoming a hotel. You see, there's nothing to say that NAF will not move its location again down the future, where's that building be converted. But anyway, I just want to appeal to you today. I don't know what we can do, but I would love for the developers to give something back to the community, with the community agreement or whatever it is, that we want to support you, but we also want something back.
Thank you,
Thank
sir. Eric, do you want to comment?
I just wanted to thank Mr. Miles for his comments. And one of the things that we can do is we can make sure that you have, I could connect you with the developer. This is really we really didn't know about this until about a month ago. This is through the certified local government, the National Park Service, the Maryland Historical Trust, and we weren't even tied into it. So that's one of the reasons. But once we got it, we made sure that you received information about it. That was something that staff was making sure of. But anyway, we'll make sure that the developer has your contact information to the community.
Do we have anyone else who would like to testify?
I would.
Come up, sir. Please state your first and last name for the record.
Sure.
My name is Bill Curtis, or William Curtis. I am a former city employee of 27 years. I'm not necessarily from Baltimore, I'm from New Jersey, but I've been here since '63. I know about Dunbar, I know its importance, and to me, it's a no-brainer for it to be approved for historical trust, for historical designation. Other thing I'll say is why I came down, Mr. Miles put the word out, took it upon myself to put some time in to come down. What I would also request is that it just not be transformed by a developer into a high-end property that nobody can afford. That's how Baltimore is driven. And somewhere, somebody in the bureaucracy needs to make strong recommendations to that effect. Across the street, or down the street, there was low-rise projects torn down. I think it was called Somerset. Laid fallow for about 10 years so people would forget what was there. And now something's being constructed. I know it's not going to be at a reasonable rent or lease for people who used to live there or people who may want to live there. So I'm just appealing today, I'm sure, well, definitely speaking my support of this historical designation, but also putting it out to CHAPS, which I had some dealings with when I was working for the city. I worked in the CDBG office. I'm appealing to CHAPS and your own deliberations internally to perhaps consider, having these developers really come in as a partnership and not just take advantage of us. All over town, developers take advantage of Baltimore City. We give them a lot. Everybody's ha-ha, kiki. And nothing really changes except a high-end development. And that's got to stop, I mean, and I'm pro-development and I'm pro-business. I tell this to everybody. I'm pro-development, I'm pro-business, but I'm not anti-poor. Okay? And that's like a head spinner, I know. Pro-development, pro-business, but not anti-poor. I'm just requesting, so I'm not going to take up a lot of time, but I did want to express myself for CHAPS taking it upon themselves to designate this as a historical structure and all that comes with it. And I'm appealing that a part of your recommendations is that it's not just a high-end building. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Curtis. Do we have anyone else who would like to testify? All right, hearing none. Thank you. Commissioners? Yes, ma'am.
I don't know how much, I know this has already been through the state committee to review this, but as was mentioned in Mr. Miles's letter, I do think that the nomination could go into a little bit more depth, or at least mention persons, significant persons who attended the school. There's a lot about persons who advocated for it, were involved in its design and getting it constructed and everything, but there's not very much about significant persons who attended it. And I know Baltimore is very proud of its high schools and where people attended, and so that would be a recommendation, if possible, to add some text about that.
Thank you. Any other comments by the commissioners?
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
Gary Rodwell, Coppin Heights Community Development Corporation. Mr. Miles has asked, and I think our ED has noted that there will be included in the recommendation the opportunity for the community to meet with developers. Is there anything that we can do that would position that to happen in any stronger way?
I was going to ask Tamara if you could probably comment on it, given on this, given you're representing DHCD, and just understanding what the process has been for other projects.
Sure. Typically, the development projects actually run through the Housing Authority for PSO, so we would be happy to make that connection because they're the ones that are actually making the contractual deals with the developers themselves. But I'd be happy to make that entree and make sure everyone can connect. We can do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments before we vote? All right. So the recommendation is staff recommends approval of the nomination because it meets National Register criterion. A, ethnic heritage, Black history, local, and criterion C, architecture. Staff further recommends minor copy editing. Are we fine with this recommendation? Does it need to be modified at all?
Are we able to recommend additional text on persons who attended? Is that within our scope or not at this point?
We could suggest anything, but we can't compel anything to happen. But sure, if you would want us to write to the MHT that we think they need more on local history and the local people that went there, we could put that in there.
And we can also provide that as well. We have that in the CHAP landmark designation report already.
Yeah, it's not like they have to work terribly hard to add it.
No, they don't. They already have it. Yeah, they should already, yeah.
Okay, so I'll put forward a motion to accept staff recommendation for approval of the nomination because it meets National Register Criterion A, Ethnic Heritage, Black History, Local, and Criterion C, Architecture. And staff further recommends minor copy editing and the addition of details on significant local persons who attended the school.
Great. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Recommendation approved. Thank you. All right, I think our next agenda item is 506 North Howard Street, Mayfair Theater.
Good afternoon, Commission.
Good afternoon.
Okay. Today I have for you a concept review for the deconstruction and reconstruction of the facade of the Mayfair Theater, which is located at 506 North Howard Street. The applicant is Yona Zoller, the Solid Code Development, and I, Lauren Chizik, and the staff. The site is located at the intersection, just north of the intersection of the 300 block of West Franklin Street and the 500 block of North Howard Street in the west side of downtown Baltimore. And it's located in the Market Center National Register Historic District. And as you can see, there's a cluster of 3 Baltimore City landmarks right here. One of them is no longer extant. There's also the Congress Hotel fronting on Franklin Street and the Mayfair Theater here on North Howard Street. Also of note is the fact that the light rail runs adjacent to the subject property on North Howard Street, and that is an important factor in this request. I just want to share a few aerials over the years of this property, just to sort of share a little bit about its context and where we are today. This is an aerial view from the east in December 2015. On the left side of the screen, on the right side of the screen is the same property in December 2020. You can see it's lost the rear portion of the property and the majority of the walls. And here it is just a couple months ago in January 2024. This is a photo that I took just a week ago showing the facade of the property. Here's another view sort of at the intersection of Howard and Franklin, showing just sort of the surviving portion of the front of the building and just how shallow the remainder of the building goes back on the site. Stuck my hand through the security screen, don't tell anybody, to get that photo. Again, just to offer a clear image of what is there, what is still there. And you can see there's just a little ghosting of the auditorium sign up at the top. And the remnants of other buildings that had been adjacent that had also been Baltimore City landmarks that were demolished with the approval of this commission because they were so far gone. They had lost integrity. This is a photo from 2021. And this is a photo from the north looking south where you can really see just how close the light rail is to this property. It's really just separated by the sidewalk, which, while generous, is still pretty tight. And then I'll go through some of these photos again, but these are some other additional photos supplied by the applicant, just showing the conditions of the property, including the conditions of the interior, which I was not able to access, but are relevant for this discussion, as you can see here. And as were in your packets, uploaded onto the Wix site. So a little bit of background on this property. I'm just going to hit the highlights. This was a vacant property that was purchased by the city in 1987. 1998, the roof collapsed. In 2011, it was designated as a Baltimore City landmark by the mayor. That CHAP actually had recommended approval of the designation in 2009, and the designation was sort of paired with a redevelopment proposal. The idea was the developers were actually very interested in it being a local landmark because they thought it would, be more helpful for their applications for tax credits to rehab the property. Unfortunately, that project didn't come to fruition. In 2016, the side and rear walls were demolished on an emergency basis by the city. And meanwhile, most of this time, the city BDC had been trying to find a developer to develop the property, went through several rounds of RFPs that were unsuccessful. In 2018, they had a successful RFP, and the Baltimore Development Corporation, BDC, selected Zalco Development to redevelop the Mayfair Theater and the adjacent property at 300 to 304 West Franklin Street, which is the site of the former Franklin Delphi Hotel. In 2021, over the course of 3 public hearings, the commission reviewed and approved the proposal to construct 6-story buildings behind the facade of the Mayfair Theater and on the site of the former Franklin Delphi Hotel, and to rehab the facade of the theater. And a little addition, per the request of Commissioner Good, I confirmed that in December 2020, the property was transferred to the developer from the city. So December 2022. Summary of the proposal. The applicant is proposing to deconstruct and reconstruct the facade of the Mayfair Theater. Additionally, the partial brick walls on the north, west, and south elevations will be demolished. And here's the plan showing that. And here is the elevation showing that. As approved by the commission in 2021, the plans submitted for building permits were to retain the surviving 25 or so feet of the Mayfair Theater and construct a 6-story structure on the footprint of the rest of the parcel, incorporating the facade and retaining the 1-story portion of the north wall of the Mayfair Theater, which you can see here in one view and here in another view. The applicant submitted plans for exterior shoring of the Mayfair Theater facade recently, utilizing the sidewalk on North Howard Street. The Maryland Transit Authority, MTA, has rejected all proposals for exterior shoring, citing the potential impacts to the light rail and to the Howard Street tunnel located underneath Howard Street. The applicant also submitted a letter from the president of SCARTA and Associates, which states that the south concrete stair tower and roof framing has completely collapsed, and the north concrete stair is in precarious condition. The upper roof framing and remaining wood floors have significant moisture damage and are in danger of collapse. The existing mansard roof in this condition is not salvageable, and furthermore, working inside the building is completely unsafe without shoring and stabilizing the existing wood and remaining concrete framing. And goes on to say that this building is in danger of collapse, especially if the wood framing is allowed to continue to decay and if there would be a significant above average wind load event. According to SCARTA, it will be too costly and impractical to narrow the shoring on the front of the building from the 15 to 17 foot clearance that was proposed to the 10-foot clearance that MTA is calling for. SCARTA also states that it's impractical to provide the shoring and stabilization inside the building due to the poor conditions of the structure. And therefore, the proposal is to carefully deconstruct and reconstruct the terracotta facade on a new structural frame. The proposed alterations are being considered under the Baltimore City Historic Preservation Design Guidelines 1.2 masonry. The applicant retained a structural engineer to determine the feasibility of alternatives to exterior shoring, and the structural engineer has determined that interior shoring is not feasible or safe. Additionally, it's been determined that the surviving one-story tall portions of the brick walls of the Mayfair Theater are not structurally sound. The majority of these brick walls were previously demolished on an emergency basis by the City of Baltimore in 2016. So, they did consult the structural engineer experienced in historic preservation to investigate possible structural issues. Our guidelines on brick don't really address this, so we're going to use a different guideline that does. 1.2.5 stone states that you should only remove or rebuild substantial portions of stone masonry walls for structural integrity reasons. The applicant has demonstrated that there are structural integrity issues as well as regulatory issues that are the driving forces behind this request, and staff believes that the applicant has made a strong case that the deconstruction and reconstruction of the facade of the Mayfair Theater is the only viable option to save this significant historic facade. The applicant has provided a detailed summary of the proposed deconstruction process, the storage of masonry elements, and reconstruction. Staff also believes that the removal of the surviving one-story portions of the exterior brick wall of the Mayfair on the north, west, and south elevations is reasonable, given that the masonry walls were largely demolished on an emergency basis 6 years ago, and the surviving brick walls have been exposed and unprotected from weathering and deterioration since that time. Staff has notified Baltimore Heritage, Baltimore National Heritage Area, Baltimore AIA, Downtown Partnership of Baltimore, Market Center CDC, Market Center Merchants Association, and the Mount Vernon Belvedere Association, and staff has received no comments at this point in time. Regulatory requirements, again, from the MTA and structural integrity issues are the driving forces behind the request. And again, staff believes that the applicant has made a strong case that deconstruction and reconstruction of the facade is the only viable option to save this historic facade, given the structural issues that are at play. Additionally, it's worth noting that state funds that were granted for the stabilization of the facade may be used for the deconstruction and reconstruction. So, this is funded. This is not a cheap proposal. This is not an inexpensive proposal to do, and the developer has made it very clear, as it says, on this slide, that by following this methodical and detailed approach, we aim to ensure that the historical and architectural integrity of the Mayfair Theater's facade is preserved and restored to its former glory. And so given the circumstances of this, both the structural and regulatory issues at play here, staff recommends approval of the deconstruction and reconstruction of the Mayfair Theater facade and removal of the surviving portions of the deteriorated masonry walls, with final details to be approved by staff. Thank you, Commissioners. Any questions for me?
Thank you, Lauren.
Commissioner, I have a question. I believe you indicated in our briefing session, but I just wanted to double check. The project has been filed for a building permit and they are ready to move forward. Is that correct?
That is my understanding, and either the developer or his architecture team can address that fully. Yeah. I know that we signed off on it, so I don't know what the status of the permit is, but I know that we've already signed off on it. CHAP has signed off on our review portion of that permit.
Are we ready to hear from the development team, Commissioners? I think I have Tom Liebel.
So, yeah, and then Yoda.
Madam Chair, member of the commission, great to be back. Lovely to see you all today. I don't have a lot to add right now. I think
Before you
Lauren,
start, did you say your name?
Sorry, Tom Liebel. Managing Principal of Mosley Architects. Frequent flyer here at CHAP. Just want to walk through, Lauren's presentation, I think, is very, very thorough. I think we provide as much documentation as was warranted here. One thing I would add is that engaging SCARTA was a third-party engineering review. They're not the structural engineers for the project. We wanted to make sure it was very clear that the review was not biased by the development team, but it was truly a third-party review with that. And to answer a couple questions, this process started because the permit was ready. We were starting to do the required permitting to start the stabilization. And that's when NTA stepped up and said, you can't do it. And we tried multiple passes with multiple options on it, and between not being able to shore from the back, and trying multiple approaches with MTA to the front, none of which they accepted. And it's not just going out, but we can't go down either. We looked at trying to do maybe some deep shoring, and there's a tunnel down there. So clearly, this was not where we wanted to be, but it's ultimately, our commitment is to preserve that facade, and unfortunately, to do that, we have to deconstruct it and provide a proper substrate for it. I would also offer, in terms of the one-story surrounding walls there, the other thing to consider is that they have lost their structural integrity. So to put them back, we'd have to remove them, deconstruct those as well, and reconstruct them. At that point, then it's not a substantial, element of the project, and it's not original at that point either. So, we think it's certainly appropriate to ask for that. And I can answer any questions. And we also have Zala, the developer, and Chase Gaylord, the contractor, here if you have any other technical questions.
We know I always have a question. One major concern on my part is that terracotta, and especially the condition that this is in frequently, once you start trying to deconstruct it, there are major issues with it cracking, falling to pieces, et cetera, et cetera. Has there been any kind of test removal done by the team to see if it's actually feasible to remove the terracotta element from the backup masonry and have it intact?
We've not done any preliminary destructive testing to do that. We have been consulting with several masonry contractors, one of which I'm told was actually one of the 3 masonry contractors allowed to bid on the restoration of the Washington Monument, who feel that it will be challenging, but they have the process in place to do that. There's likely to be some damage in deconstruction, absolutely, but I think we've got the contractors in place who can certainly minimize that.
Is there a plan for the replacement of units which do fail during the reconstruction?
That would be the intention, yes.
Would they be replaced in kind with terracotta or a substitute material?
We've not gotten that level of detail yet. That'd be something I'm going to work through with staff.
Okay. I had one more question, but what was it? That's good for now, Mr. Liebel. Thank you. If I remember the other one, I'll bring it up.
Thank you so much.
All right, any other questions?
Are you going to return the headless statues to the niches?
Well, that's the existing condition, so we intend to preserve the headless statues as they are today, as headless statues. It's part of its charm is the
They've
patina.
become an icon in and of themselves.
Absolutely. So no, it's the goal is
They're
to
just
kind
not
of.
on your elevations. I wanted to
No, they
point
will
that
be
out.
there, yes.
I remember my other question, which actually might be for Lauren, which is, we had conditions on the previous review and approval. We mentioned those kind of during the staff briefing, but those still apply to the project, such as the investigation for the storefront area.
Yeah, absolutely.
Correct?
Yes, that is correct. And that still stands. So we just rolled that into this. Yep.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you very much.
Is there anyone else here to testify or present regarding this project? All right. Commissioners, any more discussion?
Just one more question. I think this is for Lauren. I saw like there was some email conversation with MTA, but do we need or do we want to or should we request just something formal, just for record, about their disapproval of the shoring concept?
We can absolutely ask for a formal, email letter from MTA regarding their rejection.
I agree with you. Just to avoid a precedent kind of issue, this is a special circumstance being right next to light rail and with the additional basements and everything shoring. It's just seems like it's very difficult. I would suggest, fellow commissioners, that we should suggest that they do a kind of small test section when they start to see what kind of loss we're talking about, and then bring that back to staff for review for any replacement materials that might need to happen.
Maybe we can add that to the recommendation when we're about to vote.
Sounds good to me, if others agree.
Are there any other comments, questions by the commissioners? Are we ready to vote? Okay, so the current recommendation is staff recommends approval of the deconstruction and reconstruction of the Mayfair Theater facade and removal of the surviving portions of the deteriorated masonry walls. Final details to be approved by staff. And then Commissioner Catherine, what do you want to add?
Request an official documentation from MTA and recommend that a test area be completed for terracotta removal to be reviewed by staff.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other additions? If not, are we ready to vote? Do I have someone put in a motion?
That's
you?
me moving the motion.
Thank you. Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none? Approved. Thank you. You guys are moving pretty quickly. Thank you. Our next agenda item is 1114 Cathedral Street. Anthony?
One second, sorry. Sorry, I had to get walking sometimes. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
So
Again.
yeah, so this is gonna be to paint a mural on the north elevation blocks surrounding Mount Vernon Place. The contributing buildings within this district include diversity of styles and building types, including mansions, apartment, offices, and religious structures. As you can see, this is the location on the map for here. The period of significance for Mount Vernon is between 1810 and 1945. This picture is actually mislabeled. Sorry about that. That's actually from that's from this year. I took that myself. So 1114 Cathedral Street's a 2-story tall, 3-bay wide brick commercial structure. It was constructed in the 1910 and 1920s on lots that once held houses. Over time, it has been repurposed for various commercial uses. When it was constructed, it was a mid-block cathedral street with several other buildings located on the north of this building. However, in the late 20th century, likely during urban renewal, all the buildings on the north of this one were demolished for the extension of Chase Street. Today, the north wall of this building, which was originally an interior party wall, now serves as an exterior wall facing a surface parking lot. This parking lot was consolidated into the property and is visible from West Chase Street. The north wall is covered with painted stucco and several doors and windows openings that have been added on the first floor. The north side of West Chase Street across the street from the building is located outside the local historic district, and surface parking lot is surrounded by a tall brick wall. So you can see that right across the street, there's another parking lot. So that's where the mural would be facing. This is the parking lot. This is a photo from 2008 before everything was before it was approved, before the windows and stuff were approved. Here's the front elevation. The building at 1 Street has undergone several modifications over the years, reflecting a varied use. The historic facade faces Cathedral Street and retains many of its historical architecture features, such as the brick masonry and decorative elements. In 2013, CHAP approved the addition of storefront windows and shop entrances to the north elevation of the building with a new stucco system. This was considered a minor project because of the secondary nature of the elevation. The staff has also reviewed and approved other minor work on this property, such as signage and lighting. The property at 1114 Cathedral Street had recently been utilized for various commercial purposes, including retail, boutiques, pharmacies, medical dispensaries, and specialized retail spaces. Modifications have been made to accommodate these uses. The proposal. The applicant is proposing to install a mural on the top half of the north-facing wall of the building. The mural aims to enhance the visual appeal of the building. Connor Wheaton, the applicant, provided additional details about the mural. And the majority of the elements in this mural will be 10 feet tall, with some aspects peaking around 15 feet tall. The mural itself will stretch the entirety of the north-facing wall, which is approximately 116 feet wide. The mural will use soft, muted colors, and the mural is a love letter to the town of Baltimore, paying respect to its rich history by using shapes and angles that invoke imagery remnants of Baltimore's architectural style. So this is version A, and this is a version B. And I would like to say again that CHAP guidelines include a section of artistic expression which cover the installation of murals. CHAP does not review the art content for murals. CHAP reviews the size, location, and determination of the mural will negatively affect the historic architecture, streetscape, or landscape. Again, we do not review content. Application of the guidelines. CHAP applied 6.1, design guidelines for artistic expression. The proposal meets the guidelines. The mural installation is designed to be reversible, ensuring no permanent damage to the historic masonry. The project plans to include the use of appropriate techniques and materials to preserve the building's integrity. The north elevation of this building has no historic architectural details that could be altered or obscured or diminished by this project. CHAP applied 6.2 murals. The proposal meet this guideline because the murals will utilize the vapor permeable masonry paint to prevent damage to the stucco brick substrate, which is already painted. The selected paint allows the future removal without the use of destructive methods. While the mural is planned for a highly visible facade that now serves as a primary elevation, it's obvious that this elevation was not originally an exterior wall, and the wall itself was not a historic facade. Neighborhood comments. CHAP has notified the Architecture Review and the MVBA. We have received 8 letters. They are uploaded on the WIC site, combined into one set of documents. Most of our opposition. The analysis. The proposed mural at project at 1114 Cathedral Street adheres to CHAP guidelines for artistic expression in terms of reversibility and not impacting character-defining historic features. Vapor permeable masonry paint is appropriate material on the painted stucco. The location, height, and scale of the mural is appropriate. This mural is proposed for an alternate elevation with it originally had an interior party wall. While the wall is now a large, highly visible exterior wall, it is not a primary facade of the building. Additionally, the building is located on the edge of the local historic district and the proposed mural faces out of the district. Based on the information provided, the mural enhances the building's visual appeal. Bless you. So, staff's recommendation is approval of the mural on the north elevation, and the applicant should work with the community to finalize the design. Questions?
Thank you, Anthony. I'm showing we have 3 people here to testify today.
Oh, also
Oh, sorry.
the owner is here. Would you like to speak? He didn't say, did you want to speak?
I signed in, but
Okay.
anything you need from me, I'm at your disposal.
All right.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, so.
Well, as the applicant, do you want to come up and just introduce yourself and talk about?
What do I have to?
Please, when you get up to the mic, give us your name and first and last name. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks so much for having me here. Anthony, thank you so much for that. Really do appreciate it. I'm Connor Welton. I'm one of the founders of Relief Shop, the dispensary in Mount Vernon, and I'm also now one of the part owners of that building. After a few years, we're able to acquire it. To me, every time I come in, I see this blank canvas down the front, and it looks like the perfect place to have a mural. And it really just goes back to the love of the city, wanting to do business here, and doing something for the community. And it would be my great privilege to be able to get this mural onto this wall and continue to invest in the city and this neighborhood. And if you guys have any questions or anything you'd like to ask, I'm, again, at your disposal.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any
I
questions?
have one question. I know we have several letters from the local ARC committee. How much have you worked with them? We don't review the content of the mural, so I'm not necessarily asking that, but how much have you worked with them on content of the mural, placement, everything like that?
Thank you. That's where I started. I went and had my good friend over here. I'm sorry, could you remind me of your name again? Todd? Scott, that's right. Started talking with Scott probably over a year ago. Scott was kind enough to give me his time to come out. Although we might have varying opinions on what should be on there and maybe some artistic expression, I've been extremely accommodating to any questions, and I've always welcomed any feedback.
Any other questions, Commissioners, before we bring people up who would like to testify? Thank you.
Thanks.
Is Anna Marbury available? Am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Anna Mabry.
Anna Mabry. Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
I'm a resident of Mount Vernon and the MVBA membership chair. And you've said before that it's a choice to live in Mount Vernon. It's also a choice to do business there, to have a business there. And we encourage those things. And we discourage murals in the historic neighborhood. We don't want billboards masquerading as murals. And, Anthony said that you can't review content. So if you were to consider it now, you're opening a Pandora's box by setting precedent in a historic district, and it puts the city at risk for future legal action for not approving murals in the future. So I'm just testifying to, against allowing this mural. Thanks.
Thank you. Jack, Dana?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I just want to make sure you got my letter. I was a little late getting it in early this morning. Okay, so then I'll just touch on 4 very important salient points why, on behalf of the community and serve as the president, we oppose the mural. Excuse me? Oh, sorry. Jack Dana, president of the Mount Vernon Belvedere Association. I'm here sharing 4 points, which is grounded in our opposition to the mural proposed at 1114 Cathedral Street. First point, we believe this is a tool to use artistic expression as a way to advertise and market the business, which would expand the Relief Shop's sign program, which would violate CHAP and MVBA design guidelines. Second point, it's precedent setting. If this mural is approved, The moratorium for additional murals will only increase in the desire to paint directly on masonry and stucco surfaces, which is only increasing and an ongoing problem in our historic district. Point number 3 is visibility and primary facades. The proposed mural will be located on a prominent facade north-facing at the convergence of Cathedral, Chase, Park, and Dr. Martin Luther King Boulevard, where an estimated 7,500 vehicles pass through daily, along with several hundred pedestrians. The building's north-facing facade plays as a significant role, as does the north-facing facade on Cathedral Street. Due to its high visibility, it shall not be considered secondary or subordinate to the Cathedral Street facade. Number 4, slippery slope. And these comments are picked up also by Steve Shen, who sent in a letter the other day. And I just wanted to reaffirm what Anna just said and is a big concern in the community. A further complication, it's a slippery slope of artistic murals, is that there currently does not exist a mechanism to review the content. CHAP has previously stated that it does not or cannot review content. Thus, we are potentially sliding down a slippery slope towards inappropriate or offensive content each time a mural is approved. Further, we set the city and CHAP up for legal action by not approving murals in the future. I also recall this is why a distinct CHAP Light District was created for the Station North Arts District, where I work full-time, to distinguish it from and to avoid setting precedent in other CHAP districts. We urge the Commission to oppose the mural located at 1114 Cathedral Street and continue to work with us on protecting the integrity and visual harmony of our historic buildings and our community. Respectfully.
Thank you. Scott Panama?
Help you with the name, Ms. Scott Panama.
Thank you.
Taking a long way. Greetings, this is Scott Panama, Chair of the Architectural Review Committee for the Mount Vernon Belvedere Association. Welcome, Commissioners. Good to see you all again. I had the pleasure of meeting Connor over a year ago, before when it was just a medical dispensary, before it became a recreational dispensary. And they asked me about this large facade, I think it's like 116 feet across, how to animate this form. And we even talked about picking up a color of a nearby building that had a dark gray-green facade. I said, yes, that would work. And I was requested, could I propose a mural? I said, I really couldn't do that. I would entertain a mural suggestion, but I wanted to stress the fact that murals are inappropriate for Mount Vernon Belvedere Historic District. So I don't really encourage the work, but go ahead and make a proposal. The beginning of this year, they came up with a proposal which preceded the one that's before the committee now, where the relief sign was very much, the wording was very much larger in a marijuana leaf on the west side of the facade. I said, not only is this a mural, but it's become a highly offensive billboard, inappropriate for the neighborhood. The second version of the proposals that's before the committee right now reduced the wording of relief, but it's still there. And an aggregate of, you can see it on this kind of box, like a gift box type of thing toward the right side. And an amalgam of buildings that maybe talk about Baltimore, but it really has nothing to do with Mount Vernon Belvedere. The whole idea of our historic district is to maintain a special quality of the historic nature of our building, and this location will be passed, as Jack said, by thousands of people over the course of weeks. That this is advertising, this is what Mount Vernon is about. It is not what Mount Vernon is about. As an alternative, I just wanted to say I can look for other ways of animating this building. You have a whole second floor, you could add windows, for instance, or we can take this broad this stripe, this horizontal stripe, that's either, according to which version you see, it's navy green or this kind kind of lavender, and use that as the basis of suggestion of a different painting program. And in my letter to the committee, I proposed 2 different ones. Now, Mount Vernon Belvedere Association did not approve this. It's just an idea of opening up the discussion. Once this committee has the wisdom to turning down this proposal, we can come up with a way to animate the building without getting into a mural. Maybe just broad horizontal stripes or 2 would be sufficient without getting into maybe a Washington color field painting which Gene Davis would do. We're not doing that at all. But please deny this request and let the conversation continue between Connor and Relief and the Mount Vernon Belvedere Association. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, can I ask Scott a question? I've been mulling on this over here and you brought it up. What is in a short response, I should qualify that. What is the difference between what makes it a mural? You mentioned painting some stripes or something like that. When does it become a mural?
Well, if there was a line of windows about where this broad historic stripe was, it's a way of acknowledging the architectural possibility. So it's kind of related to the architectural nature of the facade if there were windows. And I even, on one version, added a smaller stripe on the top that kind of make reference to a cornice. So we try to have at least a reference to an architectural nature of the design. But as I say, we adding a color scheme, 1 or 2 colors, maybe is a way to doing it without any figurative work whatsoever, without getting into, as I say, a color field painting.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Gary Rodwell. Question. I thought I heard the applicant say that there was extensive work done with the community. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, we've been in communication a bunch.
Yeah.
What we got to was.
Wait, if I'm sorry,
please come up?
you can come up and state your name again for the record.
Yeah, absolutely. Because of our love of the community, this is Connor Welton again, by the way. That's where we started. Jack and Scott were kind enough to give me their time. When I proposed a mural and the feedback was stripes, it doesn't seem like that's much of a mural. And when I hear add windows, I am still a small business, and that would cost potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars versus what it would be to have a mural. And I have taken feedback from them and continued to modify, but I'm not trying to go from a mural to stripes.
Okay, that's fine. I wanted some clarity because at this point, I'm less kind of interested in litigating
Right.
the efficacy or not of the mural, but just trying to find out what conversation has taken place with the community.
I've gone to community meetings and I've hosted Jack and Scott at the dispensary. They were very generous with their time. And although we clearly disagree on the approval status, they've been generous with their time, and I've been more than happy to communicate and do everything I can because I do love this neighborhood.
Okay, so there is no other group of community that has any position other than the community we have represented here this afternoon?
Do I have anybody else coming out? I didn't realize that.
No, I'm just asking.
MVBA is our neighborhood. This is the neighborhood group for this part of town.
Right.
Part of my confusion.
So I was just wondering how, given the conversation that has taken place thus far, it still came to us.
Yeah.
Because I thought that.
That's the
intent would be
process, right?
I thought the intent would be to kind of.
It has to come to us.
Yeah.
Dr.
Well,
Rodwell,
it
if I
doesn't-
understand correctly, they got to a point where they agreed to disagree and went forward with submitting it to CHAP, is what I'm hearing. Would that be
I just thought I was
correct?
following what I needed to do to do this. It's my understanding that CHAP was the organization I had to go through, and I had extensive conversations with Eric Holcomb, and that's how I got here.
Right, I understand. I was just trying to get clarity on the constituency that you had that you've done extensive work with, and now I see it is indeed the folk who have come before us today.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Rodwell.
Good question for, there's a number of concerns, I guess, from the community, but one of them is that the mural, has signage in it, or has your company expressed in it. Are you open to removing that and just really making that truly an expression of art that is of the neighborhood and not having any evidence of your company on there? Is that a no?
I'm always receptive to feedback, and yeah, I mean, I would modify. I just want to make sure I'm following the guidelines and would love to move forward with the project. So I'm more than willing to take any feedback and take any considerations needed. The purpose wasn't to be a sign, it was to be.
I understand you'll get the feedback. I'm just asking you straight up. Would you remove it?
I'd be willing to, potentially.
So.
Well, I just don't know where, like, if it is.
Just
and
to
it's
make it
approved.
a dumb situation, you remove marijuana leaves and relief shop, but you had the same mural that you show there as a example. Are you open? Would you do that? Are you open to doing that?
Yeah, I'm open to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
Sometimes
guess
I feel
that's all
like sometimes the opinions could get skewed because it's cannabis and there's stigmatized opinions about it, but it is legal here in Maryland.
I'm not necessarily commenting on the content.
No,
but
I'm following you. I'm saying
I
in
do
general.
understand the difference between that there is signage.
Sure, I understand the nuance.
And so there is something to be said about something signing an actual company in a wall graphic.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
you could draw. It's
I'm
a hard
fine.
line to not draw that it could potentially be signage. So, if it's truly a mural, I agree that there's an artistic expression about mural and a placement of mural that's understood here that we could approve. But there is a concern about it being a signage piece where it can be very thin line here that it said yes, it is potentially a signage piece that could be an issue, and that's something that couldn't be approvable. So, I would just say this: if you wanted this to be approved. My sense would be is that you would be amenable to removing any evidence of your company in it in order to sort of say, hey, we have the confidence that this can continue to move forward, even with the comments saying that there has to be continual community engagement. But I would say maybe to add that staff still has to approve that engagement has been done and that consideration was actually taken into account.
Yes, sir.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm following you completely. Yeah.
Hold on one second. I'm sorry, you guys. I know Eric wanted to say something first, and then Myra and Ann.
Yeah, Commissioner Lynn really asked my question, but I think just to let folks know that, that if this is determined as signed by the zoning administrator, then there will be another review through zoning, and then we would look back at our guidelines too. So it may be the best thing to do is to if we approved of a mural, and a mural is not a sign.
Commissioner?
So at the beginning of your, when you first came up, you had mentioned the blank facade. And my question is, did you just decide straight on a mural just because it seemed the least expensive? Or did you consider other alternatives? I know windows were brought up. That's, of course, very expensive. But there are other options such as, a green wall or, like a trellis where you can have vines growing or you can have literal leaves on your dispensary. There are other types of facade treatments. And my question is, did you consider any other type of facade treatment where you might not have to deal with the precedent of a mural in a historic district?
Yeah. This is pretty complicated to get here. So we definitely priced out windows, and living walls, although it sounds inexpensive, is actually expensive and to maintain, and then you're dealing with a living plant. Again, it's just, I was born in Johns Hopkins, and I love the city, and now we've been operating a business here for quite some time, and this was just, really, it was an expression of loving this town, and, I talk to so many people every single day. I mean, we see about 1,000 people potentially through those doors, and this is just through hundreds, if not thousands, of conversations and ideas that has taken years to get here, and that's how we arrived here.
Commissioner Powell?
The city view map isn't working right for me, so I'm just trying to understand who owns the parking lot? Is it a consolidated with
Which
this-
parking lot are you referring
The
to?
parking lot in front.
That's part of the 1114 Cathedral Street. That would be
It's
my ownership
consolidated
group.
with that lot?
Yes.
With that, but all those storefronts that face the parking lot have Cathedral Street addresses?
Correct. They're just different suite numbers inside of the building.
Okay. That was it.
Okay. And I don't know, it was mentioned that it was a historic building, but it's my understanding it is not a historic building. I believe that's a distinction, if I'm not talking out of turn or not. I know it's a historic district, but not a historic building, is my understanding.
The cathedral facade is historic. This facade is probably a stucco treatment, and I would not consider that historic.
Gotcha, thank you.
So I think that might have been a misunderstanding.
Thank you.
But that right there is historic. That was probably
Correct, and
the first
no
building
modifications are being suggested for that.
I have a quick question for Jack.
Sure.
Is that all right? Can I
Thank
pull
you.
you up, Jack?
What Catherine's got one.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say I saw Jack raising his hand and clearly had a comment. So no, yeah, that's my point. Was I was going to say the same thing.
Well, you know,
Oh,
Jack,
can I ask my
name.
question first before you
Yeah,
jump in?
sure,
I
sure.
might just real quick question was, I don't have to probably, talk about your work and effort in Station North, so
Sure.
I know that you support art and everything that you do in the, and I know this is a different district, but let's say that there is a world that you bring a tremendous amount of expertise and knowledge and knowing of what an artist can really do to a wall, and knowing that this is a very visible wall but not a primary wall. I think that it does take a little extra effort there, right, for sure. But is there any? I just want to make sure that the same kind of question to him, to you, is like, if that you would continue to work with them to say, hey, if there's going to be a mural here, let me at least help to really get to where it needs to be, and are you open to that as well? Particularly if it becomes something that's not about signage.
Sure. Thank you. I really would defer that question to Scott and his committee, not punting the ball down the street or down to the relief shop. But, no doubt, all of you know, we work very hard for the Arts District. Just came off of Artscape, 13 days straight, the strongest part of Artscape. It was all about lifting up emerging artists. Not only do I work in the Arts District every single day, and during the pandemic, I work with small business owners like Connor to keep their doors open. So I think the tug of war here, commissioners, is we look at the mural, it's one intervention, it's one installation. Is there a flower wall? Is there windows being proposed? So we're coming down to what is the level of investment that this business owner rightfully can afford to do. And if the mural is his level of investment, everyone knows that Mount Vernon is a historic district. No one is against art. No one is against the business owner. No one is against a small business. But there are reasons why we move to a historic district, and we have to respect, I feel, those guidelines. And I feel if we allow this mural, which we feel is a primary wall based on visibility, we're opening up precedent. And one thing I do, and work very hard every day with Anthony, certainly Eric, he helped us the other day, 107 East Chase Street, is upholding these guidelines. And it's very hard. We're a volunteer organization. We do the code enforcement. It's not easy. And once it's up, there's a property just north of me who painted a masonry wall red. We have no idea how we're going to get it off. And so for us, it's just about our guidelines and our desire to keep our historic district historic. Yes, Ann.
I remember one time, I think it was like at the Marie Louis Bistro parking lot. Do you remember, like a couple of years ago, this
Yes,
big
there was a
billboard went
temporary,
up?
yep.
Oh, that was temporary. I couldn't figure it out. It went up and then it came down. What happened with that? Do you remember,
I'll
or
let
should Scott
Scott.
speak to that?
Can he come up?
Yeah.
You guys have any other questions for me? No? Okay, thanks.
Thanks for the question, Ann.
Please say your
This is Scott Panamone again. An advertising company contacted a building owner on the 900 block of North Calvert Street. His south-facing wall, the former party wall, was beside a parking lot. An advertising company wanted to paint a mural that be photographed for a commercial. It was very beautiful. I think Tequila was advertising. So the commercial was the painting of the mural. On the approval and the insistence by my committee that as soon as the recording of this painting job was completed, it would be painted over. We even picked the color that it would be painted over with. So it was there one day and it's gone. I also want to make notice there was a request a couple years ago when Steve Shen was the chair of my ARC panel, to a business that had a secondary facade on Guilford Avenue facing I-83, very visible from 83, and wanted to do a bit of a Washington monument and the letters of, and we went through various iterations and kept saying, no, it wasn't appropriate, no, it wasn't appropriate. In a way, it's similar to this. And eventually they backed down. We weren't going to go there. There are so many facades that could hold murals, like the one on the North Calvert of North Charles Street that had the Tequila mural. It's just one low wall on another. It'll cascade. I hate to use the old domino effect, but it'll happen.
Sorry, I have one more question with Jack. I'm sorry, Jack.
Jack, if you can come back up, please. State your name when you get up. You getting your steps in?
Yes, yes. In steps walking home. Jack Dana, president of Mount Vernon Belvedere Association.
Jack, sorry to belabor this. Baltimore City itself is historic, no? The entire city.
I'm sorry, what?
The whole city, do you consider the whole city historic?
I would say most of its physical landmass is fairly historic.
And your district is Station North, there's historic buildings there and
Sure.
everything. And so, but it's not a historic district, right?
It's not, but it's got a fairly restrictive urban renewal plan.
Right, but in the case that if it was a CHAP district, the work
Right.
that you do in terms of very, very distinct murals, actually very, very visible from parts of the city, even beyond the street of the adjacent street, are pretty visible, would be tough to do, even so, in a CHAP district, right?
Sure, and one thing that hasn't come up, a lot of my work in the Arts District is funded by the state. So, I think I've been in Station North 6 years now. I think we've been able to get 2 murals through. MHT would deny it, would not be approved, just can't do it. It's in a historic district, it's within the era of significance. So if you were to get state dollars or grant dollars, MHT normally would decline it or reject it.
Sure, but you don't have to do that for every time. You can do that funding through any kind of.
Because we like to help small business owners 99% of the time.
Right, but if there's a small business in your district, a Station North, and wanted to put a mural up, there would be a lot of support for that.
Yes, within the guidelines.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that.
Right, but 2 different neighborhoods.
In a historic city.
Right.
Okay, gotcha. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Jack. Commissioners, do we have any other questions for those here to testify?
I don't have questions, but I do have discussion points.
Okay, we'll get to that. Sorry. All right, thank you.
I have a question, I guess it's more of a question for CHAP, and I guess I'm asking if there's more clarification on what it actually means if we set a precedent now for the murals. So I guess now assuming, as a rule, there are not murals within the district, but if we approved this instance, what would that mean for future projects? Would people still need to, get approval? Like, would we need to say, yes, you have permission to do murals now? Or what exactly is the impact of setting a precedent today?
I mean, right now, we don't have a prohibition of murals in Mount Vernon. We have our murals guideline 6.2, which is section of artistic expression. And, we would follow these guidelines CHAP encourages the painting of murals only on previously painted surfaces. So that's the first thing, is do no harm to the building. And then, new murals should not damage historic masonry or alter historic streetscapes where unpainted masonry is a character-defining feature. So look at this building, I really didn't see a historic streetscape anywhere that a mural on that location would affect or detract from. Let me see. In most cases, do not place murals on primary facades of historic buildings. Secondary elevations of buildings may be an appropriate location for murals. This is for the one that this is historically it's a secondary elevation, kind of sort of turned into a primary elevation. It sort of acts as like a strip mall. But it also says, in most cases, do not place murals on primary facades. So even if you were going to say that this facade was a primary facade, it says in most cases, and this is not a historic primary facade. So I mean, and we could just go through this. So anytime there was a mural application in Mount Vernon, we would apply these guidelines and analysis.
Is there any provision that differentiates a mural from a billboard as far as advertising space?
The answer is yes.
Okay.
And right now, if this was taken to the zoning office with probably that signage, that would be determined signage, and then it would be kicked into, we have our 6.3 signs, but it probably meets most of this too.
The area would be under review by zoning.
Right, the area would be under review by zoning. So if we took away the signage piece of it and just as a mural, then we would look at the location and size.
Okay, thank you.
Quick question. When you say when we can remove the signage piece of it all, does that mean that you're saying that the motion can be that we approve as long as it has no indication of signage, and then that it still needs to go in front of the zoning commission to get?
I would say, well, there's different ways to do it. I think maybe the easiest would say that we approve of a mural here. And then we could put in parentheses, if we wanted just to be extra careful, to saying a mural, not a sign, is defined by the zoning administrator. Would that make sense? And if it is defined as a sign, then Mr. Welton could come back with a sign application and we would apply the sign guidelines, which are pretty similar, but I think that zoning would probably say it's too big, I think, right now. I don't think it would meet the zoning guidelines. But I can't say that officially.
So I wanted to bring up the point that Mr. Holcomb brought up about looking at the specific area that it's in. And so if you look at the buildings that are around it, while historically there would have been a kind of Main Street brick masonry buildings feeling, if you stand in the parking lot and turn around, with the exception of some view towards Iowa South, I always get that corner is confusing to me every time. That you see contemporary buildings, contemporary, if you were continue to turn right, contemporary, including a horrendous parking garage across the street the other way. And so while I tend to be very conservative when it comes to historic preservation and preservation of materials, to me, this corner is admittedly right on the edge of the CHAP district. And if you go across the street, you're no longer in the district. And the side of this building has already been compromised from a historic perspective, because traditionally that would be a wall with other buildings, and instead you have windows, you have doors, you have contemporary canopies, etc. So in my opinion, a mural in this location would not adversely affect the historic character of the district because it's predominantly surrounded by contemporary buildings. It's on a wall that has already been kind of denied its true context and has contemporary openings and treatments.
Yeah, but that's a hard position to make defensible. So, if you set the precedent that murals are allowed on secondary walls, that's clear cut. But just if you go, well, I can count that 75% of the buildings aren't contributing structures to the district.
Well, and that's where I
too
struggle.
obtuse. Yeah, no.
So, as far as our guideline, it says, yeah, so I was just looking. Damage or alter historic streetscapes where unpainted masonry is a character defining feature. And I guess that's one of the perspectives that I wanted to bring up for discussion, which is it really a historic streetscape where unpainted masonry is a character defining feature? That's my question for the commission.
I mean, what gets challenging on this is that you have when you just think about Charles Street, which is the historic corridor of the city, and how much demolition has happened, and even in Mount Vernon on Charles Street, there are a lot of secondary facades that could be covered up with murals, and I think that's the tension here, is that, if whatever you do, it's not gonna be, what's the precedent that's being set? And, do we really want to amplify the missing teeth on one of our city's, primary promenades? Because that's what we would be in. That's the tension. I don't have an answer. I'll just say that's the tension.
Well, I have a couple thoughts. And maybe I'm wrong, but looking at the guideline, it says alter historic streetscapes where unpainted masonry is a character defining feature. This wall is already painted. It's just not painted as a mural. It's painted as a solid color. So really, it's not going against the guideline. It's actually in line with the guideline. So it sounds like we're to a point of discussing, and maybe there's compromise around what's a sign. We know a painted sign exists in the code. So there's determination from the zoning administrator on which portion around, the words itself or the logo is actually determined to be a sign if it complies with the zoning code. The rest would be a mural. So it sounds like there's just compromise to be made on the design of the mural itself, because there isn't anything in the guidelines that actually go against having a mural, because the wall is actually already painted. And if you look at the wall, you can see where there was existing signage or something up there that just isn't, covered, or it's weathered or something. You can look at it and tell. I don't have a problem. I'll say right now, I know we aren't voting. I don't have a problem voting to have a mural there or supporting having a mural there, but I do want, as best as possible, that the property owner and the community association could actually come to some kind of compromise that, people could live with. And I think that's what Commissioner Lynn was getting to, is like, is there a compromise to be had on the design of the mural? And I'll leave signage to the side, because I know that's something the zoning administrator, has to weigh in on. But those are just my thoughts.
We just, as a kind of a little piece of background, we had murals in several different iterations coming in the previous commission, and one of the areas that we were targeting to rewrite to bring more clarity to was this section of the guidelines, because we do feel that it's not clear enough. So that just, we all need to remember we have to get back to that effort, that's all.
I mean, I guess also from my perspective, if the opinion of the commission as a whole, and I know this seated commission didn't necessarily write the guidelines, right, but we uphold them, that if it was, the intention was to not have murals in a CHAP district, period, then that is the way that the guideline would read. And instead, it's set up specific points to evaluate for individual circumstances. And I think we've gone through those circumstances in any application, we go through those circumstances. So the intention behind the guideline, as I interpret it, isn't just to period prohibit any mural anywhere in any CHAP district.
Yeah, I tend to agree with everyone's comment. I mean, like Eric said, we don't have a prohibition on murals. I think were there a facade that could accommodate a mural, it's this painted, unhistoric party wall that's now exposed next to a parking lot. If we wanted to prohibit murals on secondary facades throughout the city, then we should do that. But I don't think we should treat one historic district differently than another. Looking at this, I would say it meets the guidelines. We got questions about, is this a sign or a mural? And I think those are all very valid. But no, I think this pretty clearly meets our standards, and I tend to agree with staff's recommendation that the property owner work with the locals to try to come to a reasonable solution, but I'm not on the no mural police here.
I think that's right. And I do think the other thing that's to be very careful when you're negotiating between the ARC and the storefront owner is to not propose design solutions. I think it's really clear that the architectural representative committees should not be putting forward design solutions. And we've had this conversation internally here. It should always be that it is focused on critique, not proposed solutions. So I think we should keep that in mind, particularly because we all know as critics and collaborators in the design realm, if you start to solve the problem for people, it becomes a my way or your way situation, and it kind of helps break down that collaborative spirit. So it should really be focused on critique and response. I think that's all.
Yeah, agreed, and I think the emphasis should be on compromise. I mean, that's the only, I don't have an issue with a mural here. I think if we have a prohibition on a mural in this location, we should, then you're opening it up to the entire city. So I think, yeah, so I think if you want to support the culture, I think we need to support it in any district. But yes, it has to go through guidelines, it has to go through a compromise with the community, and I think that's what needs to be upheld here. And I think the recommendation does support that, and I think staff will be diligent about making sure that discussion is continual and there's a compromise to be met. And if signage is something to be proposed, it's not proposed today, it seems like, that's another submission, that's another application, and that's done through a different process.
I do think Mr. Holcomb's recommendation about adding just in parentheses after mural, not signage, just so it's super clear that we're approving if the board commission votes to approve, that we're not approving a sign, that it is a mural.
So are there any other discussions before we vote on the recommendation? All right, hearing none, can we see the recommendation, please? All right, so the recommendation as it stands is staff recommends approval of the mural on the north elevation of 1114 Cathedral Street. The applicant should work with the community to finalize the design, and then if everyone agrees with Catherine, what was the additional language?
As Director Holcomb stated, the addition of parentheses, and then, what did you say, Eric, not signage after mural? Is that what you recommended?
I think that'll work.
So it's approval of the mural, not, parentheses, not signage, parentheses, on the north elevation of 1114 Cathedral Street.
Small note to change of a mural.
Of a mural, thank you. So approval of a mural, and then after that, parentheses. Okay.
Okay. I'll make the motion, so moved on that.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Unreadiness. Does that come before? That comes after the second, right?
It comes whenever
What?
you need it, I think.
Okay.
Okay. Go ahead, sir.
Unreadiness. I would just like some clarity on kind of the resolution of the applicant should work with the community to finalize the design. That anticipates some things, and I'm just wondering, I would need a little bit more detail about that.
Agreed on that.
I don't think we should dictate that process, personally.
But you're saying that,
Yeah.
that's, I don't think he's saying that either. It's
I'm
just
not
that
saying
there's
that.
just sort of clarity on.
On what exactly they should be working on?
Well, it says the applicant should work with the community to finalize the design, right? So that anticipates that there is going to be a final design that's going to take place.
I mean, we're moving
But
for
I'm saying,
approval here.
if there is no final design agreement, what then happens?
All right, I think there's several ways. The applicant should, so there's the word should, so work with the community to finalize design. If what I would expect, and I think we could even ask Mr. Welton if that's fine, is he could reach out to the community, help set up a meeting. Anthony and I could be invited or not invited, whatever you guys feel is most important, so we could have a CHAP staff there, just sort of as a, background, and then talk about it, and talk about the design, and listen. So, and if there are any of those critiques, and I like the way that was placed, of the design, then that could be something, and then Connor can come back with, incorporating those critiques or not, and then we move forward.
And maybe just in addition, I think staff understands where the commission stands on the community collaboration, right? So maybe it just, like no different than other recommendations, is that details to be provided to staff for a final approval.
Right, and that would make sense. So I think it would be up to the staff to make sure that there was ample opportunity for community engagement.
Does
I
that
mean,
need
it
to
would-
be,
would-
does that need to be included in the motion? Or does it speak for itself?
I think it kind of speaks for itself. Sometimes I'd like to lean on more general than specific. And,
But can we add the staff?
I-
the details-
since-
the
since-
details for staff.
Since I officially made the motion, I will officially amend it to say add final details to be reviewed by staff. Does that
That
clears it up?
Thank you.
So I think we were still needing a second, or did you already second it? Will you still second? Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Hearing none, pass with those changes. Thank you. Thank you. All right, our final agenda item is 905 Light Street, Federal Hill Historic District. Bye-bye. Mr. Tariq.
Good evening, Commissioners. All right, so our request today is for I'll wait.
Okay, go ahead, sir. Sorry.
All right, so this is for 905 Light Street within the Federal Hill District. The request is to paint a mural or attach artificial flowers to the facade and replace a paired wood door with a single metal wood door. The applicant is Ms. Montana Logan, and the owner is Federal Hill Pelham LLC. So for site conditions, the immediate vicinity has a variety of building types and uses, which include commercial, residential, and mixed uses. Located a half block north of the site, there is a large 3-story mural painted on the side of a building. The mural faces onto Light Street, and the location was approved by this commission several years ago. Here's a Sanborn map showing 805, 905, and 907 Light Street. They were consolidated in the past and have one address at 905 Light Street. The properties are located on the east side of the 900 block of Light Street. There is a walking alley immediately to the north of the properties, and the rear elevation is landlocked with alley houses that face onto Compton Street. 905 Light Street is comprised of two structures that have been consolidated into one parcel. 905 Light Street is a two-story with an attic, which is an end-of-group row home with a storefront at the first floor, and 907 Light Street is a two-story with the attic structure with a sally port at the first floor. The Light Street facade of the structure reads as two distinct buildings. Both are two-story with attic side gable buildings. A one-story storefront protrudes from the 905 Light Street portion. The wooden storefront has simple detailing and trim at the storefront base with intricate Italianate-style detailing at the storefront corners, flanked on both sides with decorative corbels. The storefront has two large clear glass paneled windows with a transom above the wide main entrance and a decorative transom bar. The entrance has a 3/4 one panel per leaf door, paired wood door within the storefront that is accessed via a concrete step. It is unclear whether the doors are historic, but they are in good condition and appropriate for the age and style of the building. At 907 Light Street, the first floor is slightly higher, and the entrance is accessed by a marble stoop. There is a wood 3/4 one panel front door applied with Baltimore bullnose trim with a stained glass transom pane with house numbers above. The door does not appear to be historic, but is appropriate for the age and style of the building. And here are additional photos of the storefront. Here is 905 Light Street and 907 Light Street. Inside of the red box, and Baltimore Licks with a large two-story mural can be seen to the left of this red box here. Here's an aerial showing the landlocked structure. Showing the structure here. Federal Hill is a newer historic district and was designated in 2017. And on July 1st, 2024, an ATP was issued for the removal of a painted mural on 907 Light Street that was painted without CHAP approval, and retroactive approval for the painting of the storefront at 905 Light Street in yellow in its entirety was issued July 1st. Moving towards the proposal, the applicant is proposing to either paint a mural or attach artificial flowers to the facade of the storefront. The applicant is also proposing to replace the repaired wood doors with a single metal door. The applicant would prefer to attach artificial flowers to the exterior of the storefront using chicken wire. The installation would cover most of the architectural details of the storefront. If this treatment is not approved, the applicant would like to paint a flower mural on a smaller portion of the storefront. Finally, the applicant would like to replace the wooden paired 3/4 light French doors at the storefront with a single full light aluminum storefront door because she is concerned about the functionality of the paired doors at her business. Here is the product, a sample of a product that would be used to accomplish the installation of the artificial flowers. All right. Staff applied sections 1.6.2, door replacement, 6.1, guidelines for artistic expression and general guidelines, and 6.2, murals of the Baltimore City Historic Preservation Design Guidelines. For 1.62 door replacement, the existing paired doors, while not historic, are wooden, appropriate to the period and style of the building, and not deteriorated beyond repair. The proposed replacement door is metal and is not appropriate to the period and style of the building, and therefore the proposal does not meet this guideline. We've also used 6.1, Design Guidelines for Artistic Expression, General Guidelines. The installation of the chicken wire to secure the artificial flowers will cause the storefront wood paneling to be penetrated extensively with staples or similar materials, which could cause damage to the storefront paneling and wood structure. The proposed installation of the artificial flowers would obscure historic architectural features on the storefront. Thus, the installation of artificial flowers on the storefront would not meet these guidelines. And finally, CHAP staff has used section 6.2 murals as well. The proposed mural is located on a primary elevation on a painted storefront. While the guidelines state that murals should not be located on primary facades in most cases, staff thinks that the mural may be approvable given the location, provided that the design of the mural is tweaked so that it does not cover architectural details at the storefront. This proposal partially meets the guidelines. The property is located in the Federal Hill Historic District. Therefore, staff informed the Federal Hill Arc, which is in opposition to the artificial flower installation and the replacement door. But their comments were silent on the mural. The commissioners were given this formal letter on the WIC site. For the analysis of the proposal today, we have 3 bullet points. CHAP staff has determined that 1, the artificial flowers does not meet the CHAP guidelines because the flowers cover architectural detailing at the storefront, including the corbels, detailed dental cornice, and its paneling. Additionally, the chicken wire installation on the storefront will require many staples or nails, which will damage the storefront. 2, the painted mural is on a primary facade, which does not meet the guidelines in most cases. However, staff believes that this mural meets the design guidelines because it is on a previously painted surface and only covers a portion of the storefront. And there is already a precedent for murals on this block, with the mural half a block north. If the mural design is tweaked so that it does not cover any historic architectural detailing, staff finds that the mural will comply with the design guidelines. The commission does not have any jurisdiction over content of the mural. And 3, the proposed replacement of the paired wooden doors with the metal door does not meet the CHAP guidelines. If the applicant is concerned about the functionality of the paired doors on the storefront, staff recommends that the applicant explore altering the paired doors to make them function like a single door, thus retaining the appearance of historically appropriate paired doors. For staff's recommendation, CHAP staff recommends disapproval of the artificial flowers on the front facade. CHAP staff recommends approval of a painted mural on the storefront paneling if the mural does not cover any historic architectural detailing. And then finally, CHAP staff recommends disapproval of the replacement of the paired wooden doors. Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you,
Any
Terry.
questions? You're welcome.
Is the applicant here by any chance?
Yes.
Yes. Do you have anything that you want to share, or do you want to talk to the commission?
I have a quick question for Tyreek, for staff. Just real quick, we're not reviewing, there, looks like there's signage to the left, to the right side. We're not reviewing that, is that proposed in this application?
The signage would be reviewed at staff level, so that has been omitted from this proposal.
Sorry. Are there any other questions for Tyreek before we have the applicant come up? Thank you, Tyreek.
You're welcome.
Please. And please state your first and last name, please.
Hi, Montana Logan. I'm new to the city, so I didn't know that we couldn't have a mural without permission, basically. So I had, somebody had came and put like a note on my door, basically saying that you have to get approved and everything. So once I called down here, they said that I did have, it was a mural on the brick. I got it removed, and I just wanted to come up with secondary options for the business. So I came up with the flowers on the storefront, or either painted flowers on the storefront. And the door, everybody has one door on the block, and I just wanted it easier for my customers to come in. That's all. And I would like my sign to be on the brick only because the tree is blocking my front. It's bigger than that. So it's blocking my front, and I wanted to, and I do have both sides. I have 905 and 907. So
And is that a single business?
yes.
So it's all the smoothie garden?
Yes.
Okay.
And now
And what is your primary door?
my primary door is the front, right there,
Well,
905. That's my primary door because it's big enough for somebody to come. Like, what if an overweight person comes in?
Yeah,
A
no,
big
I don't have a statement on it. I'm just trying to understand because it was confused. So you come,
both doors are my location.
they both go into the same space inside.
Yes.
And
Yes.
yep, but you want to put the signage on the 907 building because it's obscured by the tree on the 905 building.
Yes.
Okay.
The signage is not going to the commission. The signage can be approved at staff level.
I was just breaking down everything.
Yeah,
that
yeah,
I'm
I
here
just
for.
wanted, yeah, I just wanted to.
I didn't want no problems. I want to just give to the community. I don't want. I did not know that I ruffled anybody's feathers because they was a little upset that you. And it looked crazy right now because, well, it doesn't look crazy now, but it was looking crazy at that moment because they had said something at that time and the person just stopped painting, and then I immediately started getting it removed because I didn't want to upset the community. So that's about it.
Are there any other questions for the applicant, commissioners? Thank you.
Okay.
So, discussion?
I have a question maybe for Tyreek. When you say to not cover any architectural detailing, are you including the panel elements below the windows? Or is it just kind of the cornice work above? What is your recommendation?
It is mainly the cornice work above. We would like for the murals to incorporate the paneling inside of the design. So yes, of course, the storefront paneling at the base will be covered, but if incorporated correctly, it should be fine. But it's mainly the brackets, the dentiled cornice, and the corbels.
I have a question. So if I'm looking at the report, is it figure 23? Okay.
And we don't have anyone here to testify, right? Except for, I mean, obviously the owner, but no one from the local ARC.
No, but they have submitted a formal document to you all. That's on the WIC site.
Is there any other discussion, any other questions for Tariq or the applicant? Hearing none, are we ready to vote?
I think we're ready for discussion.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought that's what we were kind of having. Is there more discussion?
Um, think everyone's tired.
I mean, if there's any more discussion and we're not ready to vote, just let me know. But if we're ready to vote, all right.
I'm ready.
Okay, hearing none, all right.
These scrunchy faces.
So I'll read the recommendation. The recommendation is CHAP staff recommends disapproval of the artificial flowers on the front facade. CHAP staff recommends approval of the painted mural on the storefront paneling if the mural does not cover any historic architectural detailing. CHAP staff recommends disapproval of the replacement of the painted wooden doors. Are there any other changes, or are there any changes to this recommendation?
Can I make a motion?
Yes, you can.
So moved.
Great.
Second.
Is there a second? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
If I could just, oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Finish, yeah. I know, and I still am voting the way I'm voting.
Okay, so, all right, opposed? Hearing none, recommendation approved. Thank you.
Just one comment, just when you're looking at, the painted flowers is maybe not have them run over the panel, maybe have like the panel be a distinct floral element or something, but I'll leave that to your discretion, but.
Yes, it will be up to the applicant to work with her artist to, yeah. So, thank you.
Well, commissioners, thank you so much for
Thank
your
you.
time today, and we are done by 3:10. So enjoy the rest of your day. This meeting ends.
Thank you.